All right, so let's talk for a bit about a disturbance in the force. It's a shame
Sure.
that CC wasn't there with us to talk about this because I know that they were excited to see this the moment that this was announced, right? And it would have been great if not just they were there, but also Tracy, were here with us
Right.
to see it, right? To talk about it because a couple of years back we talked about the Star Wars holiday special. I believe it was
Right.
2020 to be precise, right? Because this was around the same time when Wonder Woman 1984 was about to come out, so we talked about it.
Right.
I believe it was leading up to Life Day, if you will, right? Yeah. So what this show is about in a nutshell? Well, I'll let you do the synopsis, right? But yeah, just right off the gate, just right off the trailer and the premise alone, it's the documentary that a lot of Star Wars fans, right? And I'll admit, right, this show is really for the Star Wars fans, right? And just for those who kind of curious, right? Yeah. How did this bizarre film come to be, right? How did this
Yeah.
thing become a reality, right? So yeah, it took us long, it took us decades, but here we are now. Here, this film, which I believe is a independently made film. Sorry, yeah, finally gonna peel back the layers, or I should say, pull back the curtain and show us all the chicanery that took place, right? But yeah, Ricardo, take it away. What is a disturbance in the force about?
Right. So, back in, the before time,
Yeah.
it's a little movie called Star Wars.
Uh huh.
And this movie was massively successful. And then that same year, they decided to put out something called the Star Wars Holiday Special. And it was probably one of the most embarrassing pieces of media to ever exist for many people. It's pretty bad. And that's what this documentary does. It basically gets a lot of talking heads together. Uh, it feels very VH1. You know how VH1
Uh,
used to do the whole I love the 80s, I love the 70s stuff? Yeah, it's
yeah.
just great nostalgia stuff. But what the documentary does, it really does a great job of the history of that media consolidation, the history of, how, media was back then in terms of promoting a film or the nature of film, and how, because of the success of Star Wars, how that just changed the paradigm on, and how this why the holiday special was the way it was is because they didn't think it would have been this massive success. So it ended up becoming this weird like confluence of ideas, because this was before most of the big ideas in Star Wars formed as we understand them. If you think about it, right, a lot of the things that they never set up, so all of the weird calls that this thing makes, is because of the old media machinery. And you could say almost the dead pangs of old media machinery at that point, from the 70s, from the 60s, the 70s to the 80s, and that evolution going forward. And yeah, that's what it does. It relies on a lot of talking heads, but it's a bunch of Star Wars fans. So a bunch of people like, all right, Kevin Smith and Taron Killam, and a bunch of people who you know Star Wars fans and pop up in Star Wars, and over the years, and just a bunch of comedy people. But why it works really well is that they get into the idea of the variety show, and why the variety show was the way it was. And this would be a really good documentary for a younger audience who really don't know how it was to be a kind of a nerd or a geek in that time period, right? This was before um Star Trek came back. So just the idea of everything just being entirely the fan scene, and everything relying on that aspect, or just you have to promote by any means necessary, in terms of promoting your material and so on and so forth. And yeah, that's basically the documentary. It gets into the history of the actual show itself, all the decisions made, who do what and why. Probably the most infamous moment is with Beata. They do a little section with her, which is pretty funny and really great. But they just do a real like clever job of just referencing because Star Wars is so popular at this point. They reference all the self-reflexive nature of the show itself. And they do a lot of great bits about that, and reference a lot of great bits about that. So yeah, they start with Robot Chicken because they had to do. And yeah, it's just a great documentary on this. And yeah, I found myself not super loving it, because I am not one of those who, I again, because we all post modern now. I don't know, it's like 10,000 layers now. Uh, I have I've kind of grown quite wary of the whole performative hate for stuff now. It's like, yeah, it sucks. We know it sucks, but like, they get into why, and it does the performative stuff, but at the same time, it just does the actual like history itself and making sense of the nonsense, and it does a good job of that for the most part. But yeah, that's just how I felt about it. yeah, as I say, they start off with Robot Chicken. They had that really funny bit in yeah, like one of the rare funny bits in Big Bang Theory, with Mark Hamill. It's little stuff like that. And all of these things just come together, and it's edited reasonably well. Almost entirely relies on talking heads, but that's not a problem. It's fine. But yeah, I dug this for what it was. I didn't super love it because again, it this will only be like the funniest thing ever for somebody who ran into that performative like hate mob aspect of the Star Wars fandom, shitting on the holiday special. It's like, yeah, okay. Moving on. Yeah, it sucks. We know it sucks and hard to watch, but it was a product of its time. But they do a good job of putting it in its product of its time, and they're self aware enough to make sense of that, in the sense of, well, it's bad Star Wars, but what is Star Wars, and they do a good job with that, where it should be included into the Star Wars fandom. Hated all of it. Yeah. I didn't super love it, but I dug it for what it was. So yeah, that's just
Yeah, just like, I want to start off with what you said about performative heat, right? Because yeah, I like how the show just pretty much kind of tells you, yes, while it is understandable, the heat and how easy it is to spy something like this, and ask yourself, what the hell is this and whatnot.
correct.
Um, just to kind of understand it, yes, you know what I mean. It sucked, yes, but that doesn't mean that we should spend the rest of our lives, demonizing it and saying, "Oh, you
Right.
suck, you suck, you suck," right? And that's
And
why
I'm glad it doesn't spend too much time on the hate part of it either, in the sense
yes,
of, well, it shouldn't hate it either, because like I was really worried there's gonna be another people versus George Lucas kind of stuff now, because
uh,
that I felt was a very hard watch. Like, just to see people behave like complete hooligans over a creator. You
right.
know,
I
it
actually
that
never saw that. Is that's on YouTube or something?
Yeah, I think I could probably find it in
Okay.
public. I'm not sure, but I just that documentary is such a hard watch to me now, especially.
Uh-huh.
Like, geez, well, like people behave like this, right? Like, but yeah, they don't dwell on it. They just say, look, they give it for its time. They have people who hate it for the thing. But why I like it is that they get a lot of behind the scenes people. They get like people who do the music and people who do this and that and the other and
They
stuff
even
that,
get a costume designer, Dre, the one who did
yeah,
probably one of the most bizarre moments in the entire special. That's this
right,
oh gosh, this kind of Cirque du Soleil kind of dancers. Yeah, they actually
right,
get the guy who did the costumes for that. Like,
right.
weirdo. Okay.
And they come full circle by referencing, Dave Filoni and what do you call him, Iron Man director, no?
Oh yeah, John Favreau.
John Favreau,
With
right?
the
Yeah,
Mandalorian
yeah,
discussions.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. How they're fans and how even that stuff, because yeah, a lot of canon stuff come from that. It's like you forget that a lot of stuff actually came from this in the lore that you want to forget, but like, no, stuff that is stuck in canon that you love came from this, and they just do the history of it. I think I did a decent job of doing that history for what it was. So I guess I had a big super amount of fun for it, because again, I don't think I'm a Star Wars fan to say I'm super into it. Like a Star Trek equivalent of this, so like something like Star Trek 5 would I probably really love.
Oh
But for
boy.
this, not so much.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because even
For
I
this,
myself, who I'm not a Trekkie, knows how bad five is, right? I know.
right,
I
five,
know.
five pretty bad, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's stuff like that, right, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's about it. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Right, right. No, that's okay, right? Yeah. So I like that in particular in the ending, right? Without spoiling much. Yeah, they just pretty much say, like, and the person who kind of breaks it up to, all I would just say without spoiling anything, he is a famous, well, I should say one of the most memorable aspects of the variety era, right? The variety show era,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I think they mentioned Paul Lind. Yeah.
I think so. I think so. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Paul
he
Lind, and
brought
Paul Lind
up.
was really big. Yeah.
Yeah,
He was a
right.
big star back then. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, exactly. Yeah. So basically, he was saying, you know what? It's all part of art. It's part of creativity, right? Not
Right.
everything that you make is going to be successful. You will have mistakes.
Exactly.
You will drop the ball ever so often. But what you do, you pick up the ball and you move forward, right? And it's really. I love how the show also kind of reflects that, right? Where yes, back in 78 when people sat down and saw it for themselves. Well, I like that they say more the adults were like WTF, while the kids were like, oh my god, we're getting to see Star Wars on TV, right? So they went to school and talked
Right.
about, right?
Right.
I thought that was really funny as well, right? But yeah, looking back at it now, like, yeah, it was bad, but it's this we still accept this as one of ours, right? And I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan either, right? But I could totally understand that. I like the fact that the Star Wars community, that's what I'll call them, right? Yeah, don't treat this as this kind of like black sheep that you have to like shun and cast aside and ostracize because, oh, it's not part of canon and whatnot. They made it canon, right? And now you have
Right.
people like Dave Filoni and John Favreau who make it officially part of canon, right? So it's not like, say,
Right.
for example, The Last Jedi, where, certain fans, right, as usually was certain in this case, I never forget this. It's one of the most egregious things I've ever seen in my life. Put out this online petition basically saying that they should, like, write the show off the face of the earth.
Yeah, yeah, that
Like,
kind of
like you see
nonsense.
that kind of shit? It's like, no, 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 no,
Yeah,
no, no.
yeah,
Fuck
yeah.
that shit, right? That's what you
Right,
call toxic fandom, right? If all you
right,
could accept something like the Star Wars Holiday Special, then you all could accept the Last Jedi, right? That's my
right.
opinion. You could even accept, the Rise of
Well, I mean,
Skywalker, which I hate. I hate that, right?
no, but
I
it's
would one quick thing. I would put the three, I should say the prequel trilogy over the Rise of Skywalker any day. And even with
right.
all the flaws that the prequel trilogy had, it's still canon. It's still part of Star Wars lore,
Yeah.
right? So the end of
No,
the day,
but
take it or leave it.
a big dimension of that whole, the hate for thing is, I do think it's a big culture war aspect of it. It's, largely overinflated in terms of, who hate what and thing. I forget who, somebody had a great, like, podcast explaining this, the history of it, and, just running from, like, around the year 2013 to that point. So that's why I think the hate for the Last Jedi, I think, is overinflated. Like, I have a lot of problems with the Last Jedi, but it's one of the movies I still enjoy for what it was. But like the hate for it is one of those, again, performative things because of other reasons. Bullshit, normal thing.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, all right. So just a little slight detour, right? So my main reason why I enjoyed and love Last Jedi so much is that it did not rely on the heavy nostalgia that the previous film did, right? But
right,
the fans want that nostalgia, you know what I mean? So they got that, and then they got more of it, and even worse, and
yeah, nine, yeah,
yeah, with Rise of Skywalker, right? So you leave it at that, right? But yeah, back to the holiday special. Because yeah, I mean, while myself, you, CC and Tracy, we had a fun, we had a fun time, just talking about how weird it is, with the goofy humor, like with the still whip stuff and the
right,
weird stuff with Dan Carroll and be an actor, all that
right,
kind of stuff, right?
right, yeah,
Like it's an easy film to just laugh at, right? But at the same
right,
time, what makes it really fascinating is that even though it appeared on television, somehow, some way, I should say, through the power of VHS, yeah, it just managed to stay within the consciousness of the Star Wars universe, right? Or should say Star Wars
right.
community, right? And they themselves, the fans, kind of, appreciate it a lot more. And that's why today, even though we could technically call it a bad film, we still have to accept it as part of the world of Star Wars, right? For better or for worse, right? I love how the show expresses that, right? Just not, I mean, not surprising, the talking head moments are very entertaining, very insightful as well. You really learn a lot about the behind the scenes stuff and how things kind of got put together. And I kind of bring up something which, when you really think about it, kind of makes sense and kind of obvious. Yeah, look, George Lucas was about to get into pre-production work on Empire Strikes Back. He was like,
Right.
"Yeah, only do all your thing, right? Or I give all your,
Yeah.
book. I give
Well,
all your like writings of characters. So, hey, for
exactly.
example, yeah, Chewbacca have a family. Look, hold that,
Right.
right? Look, take whatever you want from it, right? And yeah, while
Right.
he working on his film, yeah, these people who are in the TV realm, who are in the variety
Right.
show realm, trying to adapt this, right? And they don't know about sci-fi, they don't understand sci-fi,
Well,
so it's like,
that's the
well,
more
let's adapt
yeah,
it.
that was the, that was the more interesting part for me.
Mm,
Just the share like clash of, again, because is right before, again, media consolidation, stuff coming
yes,
together for the first time, where you have a shared continuity. Star Wars never really, like, Star Wars was one of the first ones to really, like, put that concept on the map. It had other shows that did it before Star Wars. Star
mm,
Trek kind of did it, but again, Star Trek didn't have the movies just yet. Planet of the Apes was doing it,
yes,
where the idea of a shared continuity and put it together. That was alien stuff in. Alien stuff for the pop culture public, the American pop culture scene
right,
back then. I don't know if it had international stuff that had a shared conceit of, all right, the books is the same thing as this, and you had a connect. Star Wars did it for the first time. So to watch the weird clash, like that clash between production and making a material and putting that together is the first, like, big kind of, well, for lack of a better term, social experiment in pulling that off, right?
mm,
And just to see them just flounder in that weird way, because, like, effectively they're the first people doing this. It was just kind of brilliant, and now we just to watch that, and that part was interesting to me.
it
Shout
was.
out to oh gosh, this guy, Bob Chipman. I know people, halfway on him, but like, his really that good Star Wars gets into that. he covers that
Oh, I
aspect
still
of the
haven't seen that episode as yet to know. Yeah.
right. Because what he does, he doesn't really waste time getting into the history of Star Wars or all the shit everybody talk about. He just talk about Star Wars, the movie, and why it was the way it was and how it come together. But he gets into the why it had nobody else doing this consolidation stuff in that time period, and it's like, oh yeah, right, this comes together. And I was just thinking of that now.
Yeah.
And but with this gets into that back and forth of on the production level, people didn't know what he was doing now, like because nobody's comparing notes in any reasonable sense. Because yeah, everybody just it was so siloed back then. And
Yeah.
to watch that be the beginning of that, for lack of a better term, I don't know what to call it, egg breaking, that paradigm shift coming is really interesting to watch because everybody who's like anybody is what older Gen Xers and boomers making that argument now. They don't know what they make now. They don't know what they're dealing with. They don't know how big this is. And for this, in retrospect, to be well, and you can understand why being vilified because yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's one of those things that are just so interesting to see. 'Cause what it is, for lack of a better term, it's kind of destructive interference, right? It's just ideas and approaches just clashing in all the wrong ways now. The people don't know what to make of it or make sense of it in that sense now.
Yeah.
In terms of aesthetic and style and all these other things. And it's interesting stuff. Really
Right.
fascinating. That's the part of the documentary that had me.
Right. All right. So a few things for you, right? In retrospect, George could have hired an assistant. He could have hired somebody
Yeah,
who could at least share notes or something. But it's like, no,
Nah,
I
you
am,
can't do that.
I am going to
That is-
wherever we filmed Empire Strikes Back. I don't remember, and I'm going to do
Yeah.
my stuff there. So leave me alone.
Nah.
It kind of
Yeah,
came off
George-
like that. It kind of came off like, leave me
Yeah.
alone.
Right.
Look your Bible.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, well, I forget what you call it. The something Bible when it comes to like pre-production stuff, when it comes to
Right.
ideas and stuff, right? Yeah, hold that. It have all the ideas you need. Shut up, leave me alone. Let me go and film wherever, right? But yeah, but I could get an assistant to kind of share notes, whatever. But whatever, right? That's just a retrospect.
yeah.
I do like how the show really how the film, shows you yeah, that's how unique and weird the variety show was, right? Because I do like, and I like that it's one of those, in the show's defense kind of moments where after the success of Star Wars, you saw the characters appear in variety shows, right? There's by the way, I need to seek out these episodes or at least these clips, right? There's one, I think it's for the I think it's for the Donnie and Marie Osmond show, whatever it is like that,
Right.
where they had this performance with Star Wars characters, with stormtroopers. There's a bit involving R2D2 Dread. I must rewind that shit about 4 or 5 times. I was cracking up at that shit. That was so funny, right? It was great. I like that the interviews themselves show you just how weird these shows were, though. Like, I have a bit involving, I forgot the name of the guy. And he was at the Sea Park World or whatever it is with Shamu the whale and the performance that he gave, dog. I just watched it and I'm like, plus, I need to look for these things. Shit.
It's a different.
Like, wow.
It's a different paradigm of the transference of, again, when you think of the transference of entertainment approaches. Like, exactly. That's why it was interesting to me, because like this is when it was now getting into the video age, right? VHS hasn't come out yet. It's just like stuff now starting to get, and this is right around the time New Hollywood was hitting now. So they was right on the crest of something. It's the death of something and the crest of something. I know there's an old statement. I forget who make the statement. I think it's Antio Gramsci make the point which is the old world is destroyed. The new one hasn't been created yet. They are only monsters now. Right? This is a moment like that. They're only monsters now. That kind of thing. It's just to watch. It really fascinates how people just was not connecting to each other at all in this to make this product now.
And you could see the clashing of ideas, boy, right down to the musical performances, right? How they got Dan Carroll on board was funny, right? I'm not even gonna spoil it. It's just funny. It's just so like, hey, I want her to be in it. Well, she's not available. Okay, let me get Dan Carroll now. I love that. That's so funny, right? Although in retrospect, I would love to see the initial person be in that role, but it would not stop that scene from being so weird.
Right.
I mean, VR porn is legit VR porn, right? The Jefferson Starship moment was funny to me. Just hearing from the band, or at least the members who still living, how they felt being in this. Because, they had no clue. Well, I think they knew about Star Wars, but they didn't know why they were going to perform in this show. But again, it's a variety show and it's a format, right?
Another thing too is that you get to see one of the big parts of lost media is not so much. I don't really think about lost media, but lost media as in what could have been. As in, it has a lot of weird ideas and plans to do things, and then stuff that is big pop culture things that we think is it end up just being just like a side thing of a thing, and it end up that probably I would argue the most popular example of this is probably Tokusatsu, right, and Power Rangers, right. That was supposed to be Marvel Comics, right? That was a Marvel product originally. Stuff like that, right? Or I think Captain America, it was supposed to have a Captain Japan and a Captain Brazil, and that is what it was supposed to be, and that was the original idea of the Power Rangers. But licensing fall through, and they end up making their own thing. Or another perfect example is I think Mario was Popeye originally, or Donkey Kong. It was a Popeye game. Licensing fall through, and now how many children know who Popeye is, but everybody know who Mario is, right? Stuff
Yeah.
like that, and so on and so forth, right? That is how I just think of this. It's like, wow, this,
Yeah.
what kind of zig could I easily zag,
Exactly.
in
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
many of these scenarios now, and it's really interesting to watch these people watch say after the fact how cobbled together a lot of this stuff really is now, and not some plan ahead thing
Yeah.
that you think it is now, right?
All right. So
And planning ahead is almost always disastrous and fails.
exactly.
Yeah,
Just a couple more things and then you'll wrap up, right? But yeah, just see all these things play out is just so fascinating, right? It's funny and it's like, oh yeah, just looking back at it, that's kind of funny, right? So it's not like
yeah,
it's like the interviewees or at least those ones who were involved in the production of the film, kind of like hiding behind some kind of mosaic filter, whatever it is, right? Yeah, they just kind of saying, well, we had a job and we tried to do this, but this play out that
right,
way and blah blah blah, right? I like that. I do like the moment where they focus on when the actual show was aired, right? I thought that was pretty funny as well. There's a nice moment in the end credits where there was this commercial with this actually this promo for the news that was gonna show afterwards, the news program. And like because it was recorded on VHS now, it's if I'm not mistaken, I think that was the version I saw where no, I think I saw where there was some ads in certain points. I don't think it had all the commercials, but maybe it did. I can't remember, right? Yeah,
right.
there's this one moment where it's like news at 10 and like he become immortalized. He talk about yeah, why are they gonna bring up this, like why they immortalized me because I was talking about news at 10, right? I thought that was really funny.
Right.
Um, but the point is, yeah, just people like Kevin Smith, for example, tuning in on that night to see the show air, right? Well, on
Yep.
November the 17th, right? And how they felt afterwards, right? And I do like the aftermath as well, too, how they eventually took it and made it their own, right? By the way, props for the restoration that they did for
Yeah.
those clips, though, right?
Yeah.
So
Pretty much. Yeah.
yeah,
Quite
so
good.
I don't
Yeah.
know if this is a relation, if this project was in relation to the disability force, right? But I specifically remember somebody either doing clips or either the whole thing. I think it's clips, right? Of a 4K restoration of the Star Wars Holiday Special. And I
Right.
swear what I saw there was that 4K
Right. They
restoration. 'Cause
probably
yeah,
use that. Yeah.
that looked
Yeah.
great. Because if you go on YouTube right now, you will see the VHS stuff, right? Now,
Right.
I think because of license reasons, you can't, do 4K. You can't restore the commercials, right? I don't know.
Right.
I guess it would make any sense, right? But yeah, the work that they put into making those clips look really great is really commendable, right? And yeah, at the end of the day, I really do love that at the end of the day, it is, yeah, more of an acknowledgement than a love letter, to the Star Wars Holiday Special. It's not saying that, we should all change our minds about the show and we should love it because the
Right.
fans kind
Right.
of
Right.
love it after the fact. It's like, just accept that it was bad, but don't demonize it. Don't think that it's the worst thing that could possibly happen in the world, right? And and that's what leads to the final section and the message that yeah, mistakes happen, but don't again just learn from them and move forward, right? Don't treat them like this some kind of bastard child and throw them away. You know what I mean? So like me as a Batman fan, yes, I could look at something like Batman Robin and call it bad, but in no way will I say it's like the worst thing that's ever been made. I own that shit on Blu-ray, right? I had no choice 'cause it came in a box set, right? And yeah, if I feel for like a more hilarious version of Batman Forever, I'd watch it, right? But no way would I take that disc and burn it or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
dog,
Yeah.
it's
Right.
it's it's part of my childhood. Yeah, I mean I watch it with stunned silence back in '97, but it's part of my childhood, goddamn it. So it is what it is, man. And I can imagine the fans feeling the same way about this holiday special, right? So in closing, this leans more towards the fans, and I wouldn't really call it a gripe, but I would say for the uninitiated, I guess like for people who don't really know anything about the special, they might kind of not have a clue about what's being said. They might just find the
Right.
subject matter, the material to be fascinating, but they wouldn't really have any real context. And I would make the argument that you kind of have to see the special to understand what's being said. Like you really had to see it and let it digest, and then you can watch the show afterwards and be like, all right, that's what happened, right? Because if you just saw mere clips of it, you won't get the real, you won't get the real gist of it though. Like I'll make the argument here, you know, if you take a wrong, let me know. But yeah, I think that you seriously have to sit down, you have to bite the bullet and watch the original, the actual special itself before
Right,
really
because
appreciating this.
it had a TV version and a theatrical version. There are two versions, right?
No, I don't think so. I no, well, all right. I think why we get confused with it though, because holiday special, like even I myself had to be reminded this was like it was in a 2 hour time block now, you know? It was
Right.
that, yeah. Programming block, whatever you call it, right? So it's not a movie per se, but it's movie length, you know what I mean? If that
Right,
makes
right, right,
sense.
right.
So with the commercials or whatnot, yeah, like I think it's like about an hour and I guess 40 minutes, I think, right? From what I remember. I could be wrong. But yeah, the Disturbance Force lived up to the hype. It is exactly what it is. You know, Star Wars fans would absolutely enjoy it. Fans of TV will enjoy it as well too. Fans of media will appreciate it as well too. But again, I do strongly recommend that for lack of a better term, suffer through the holiday special, because that's the really way that's the only way you could really understand and appreciate what this show is about, right? But at the end of the day, this is just this really endearing look at something that kind of was supposed to be something big, but ended up becoming
Right.
really bizarre and weird. You know what I mean? But once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? It's one of those things, right? So I'm glad that this movie exists now to kind of pay respect to it, so to speak, right? So, shout out to Jeremy Kuhn. He's the one who directed, well, one of the producers of it. One of
Yep.
the directors of it, sorry, right? Yeah, and just getting this thing off the ground, man. You could tell that this was a labor of love that went into this, dude. And I'm just glad that we finally got, we're finally seeing it in its entirety. So yeah, rating wise, I'm gonna give this a light 4 out of 5, man. I really enjoy this. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. It's for the fans. It's for people who probably was hearing about this thing for years, but never knew the behind the scenes stuff. I'm really curious to see how Gen Zers take this, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not like like us Gen Xers who grew up on the prequels, for example, or probably saw the original trilogy when it came out or whatever, right? But yeah, I am curious to see how they who are being exposed to stuff like Andor and Boba Fett and Mandalorian look at something like this, right? Especially the holiday special itself. I really I'm really curious to see how they would treat that and how they would, take the message of the show here, right? But yeah, still forward to it. I really enjoyed this, man. I really, really recommend checking it out. Yes, Ricardo, your final thoughts are rated.
Yeah, no, I really dug the hell out of this for what it was. Because I'm not super into that aspect of the culture. I wasn't like hyped into it as much as I felt I could have been. But it worked as a nice little history anthropological exercise for the most part. Mostly in terms of like the evolution of the media landscape in and around Star Wars since it came out and how popular it is and why it is the way it is. Yeah. Rating, yeah, pretty high score, decent enough. 7 out of 10, closer to 8 to be honest. Wisdom more than that. Yeah.